This is Esteban Baca, and today I'm going to be talking to you guys about the Deepwater Horizon oil spill. The Deepwater Horizon oil spill occurred on April 20th of 2010. It first began with an explosion which led to the rig capsizing and leaking over the course of 87 days. The rig released 377,514 metric tons of oil. As for who was in charge of the rig was first leased to Transocean by a company called British Petroleum Company Ltd. Now, British Petroleum hired Halliburton as well as Anadarko, which were servicing companies, and they were hired to oversee the extraction of the oil. The spill occurred due to a series of preventable missteps by engineers and workers in the weeks and hours before the failure. There was miscommunication due to team members being transferred and coming and going from the rig. British Petroleum engineers only used a total of 6 centralizers instead of the standard 21 due to a supply shortage. The centralizers were used to help set the cement for the drilling tube in order to ensure that the drilling tube does not collapse on itself. Now, there were also pre-cementing tests that were cut short, and the cement was also pumped much slower than recommended, which caused an uneven setting into the tube, which ultimately led to a structural failure. Finally, there were misinterpreted pressure test results, which should have been easily one of the first signals that the pipeline was not operating under normal or safe, for that matter, safe conditions. As for some of the results, it had a huge economic and ecological impacts, as 14,000 plus turtles as well as hatchlings were found dead in the resulting days of the oil spill. Sea life was heavily impacted, as 377,514 metric tons were spilled. Businesses were forced to close down on the coastline as the remediation efforts for the oil spill were conducted. Any leisurely activities such as sailing, fishing, any of those activities were essentially cut off until the oil spill was remediated to a safe level. Now, as for the violations of ethical and professional conduct, pulling examples off of the Chemical Engineering Code of Ethics, bullet point 1 states, hold paramount the safety, health, and welfare of the public and protect environment in performance of their professional duties. Now, in skipping some of the necessary precautions and cutting corners, the workers demonstrated that they did not, in fact, hold paramount the safety and health of the public or the environment. In the resulting weeks, British Petroleum tried to ensure that their higher-ups were safe from prosecution, and they kind of forced the blame on some of the lower downs, including Bob Kaluza and Don Vildrine, who were managers at the time. That relates to bullet point number 3, accept responsibility for their actions, seek and heed critical review of their work, and offer objective criticism of the work of others. Though the company itself may not have been the one making decisions, ultimately it was their rig and their workers, and they were liable as a result of that. Now, British Petroleum ultimately settled for $20.8 billion for the remediation and damages that occurred, and provided $1 billion early on for the cleanup of the oil. Bob Kaluza and Don Vildrine were taken to court for 22 counts of manslaughter as well as a misdemeanor for their part in the oil spill. And this kind of teaches me, and as well as other engineers, to that though we are kids right now, once we graduate, actually, let me take a step back. We're not kids. That is ultimately one of the biggest lessons from this. We are not kids anymore, and as engineers, we are fully functioning members of the society, and every action that we take will have consequences, whether it be good or bad. And in this case, it was a horrible situation, and all of the members were prosecuted, or some kind of penalty was performed, whether it was financial or they were taken to court, um, or eventually charged. And it kind of teaches us that if we do not act morally and in an ethical behavior as engineers or even as people in general, there will be consequences. Every action has a reaction, and if the action involves cheaping out, cutting corners, being lazy, those reactions are not going to be positive, and at the end of the day, we will have to take responsibility for them.